Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I was just putting some books away in my new studio, hanging out with my birds. It looks like there's a live stream happening, birds. What do you think? Is it a touchdown, girl? It's a touchdown. Oh, it's a good girl. Yeah. We're at a live stream. Hi, everyone. Got a new 4K camera. I don't know if I look any sharper, any more clear. We've got some new software. We've moved up in the world from StreamYard. We're now on Ecamm. You can see the little watermark there. We'll get rid of that soon enough. I gotta fork over some hard-earned dough. I think I like the software though, so I think I will. And Elisa Patience. Oh, coming in from work. Thanks. Yes, you guys have been asking for the bird lately. And there's two birds. Come here, Goose. Good Goose. This is Goose. He's just a small bird from the mall. He's a mall bird. A small bird from the mall bird. And as you can see, my shelves are a little bit empty. Just unpacking things here, just getting stuff out. So, you know. Ooh, Goose. That's going to be really loud, buddy. I can't have you screaming right in the microphone. Sorry, everyone. I am going to put the birds back in just a second. I just wanted to have them out so you could say hi. Hey, Quindarius. Yes. I summon thee. Oh, I guess I want to put the birds back real quick, and was wondering if you could come say hi to the friends. With a little bit of warning, it can happen. Yes. Come here, Goosekins. Goose says hi, everyone. I'll be right back, folks. I'm just going to, well, I'll wait for a second. Oh, it looks like I've got a wall decoration right here I can add. Let's put this one up on the wall. There we go. Just like that. Hey, Quinn, say hi to the friends.
Hey guys, how's it going? I can't see any comments. Oh, there they are. How's it going, peoples? How's it going, peoples? We're just sitting here inside of this place, doing things with YouTube. I don't know why I'm singing. Hi guys. Oh, this new camera looks pretty good. It's my first time actually looking into it properly.
Did you just sing?
Yeah.
For the people?
I was just kind of, singing words.
Spoiling. In your ways.
Oh. Hi guys. Hi everyone. Alright. Dave's back.
So hey guys, we're keeping it loose today. This is the 30K subscriber stream, and yes, I'm showing off my variety of Steph Curry jerseys. I've got a few. Big fan of the Dubs and Mr. Steph Curry. So 30K subs. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Been building up for about 4.5, 5 years now. We've been doing this YouTube thing, so means a lot. Been working towards this goal. And yes, I will be doing 30 seconds of slap bass here. Yes, 30 seconds of slap bass for 30,000 subs. First super chat will trigger the 30K. 30 seconds of slap bass. How about that? And let's see if I popped in, not even looking. I probably already missed one. Let's see here. All right, I see all the friends piling in. And I also need to check out the old paypal.me. I don't have it up on screen anymore, but it's paypal.me/mythical astronomy. You don't even need a PayPal account. You can log on there and send in a donation. Oh, Elisa Patience, she wants to hear some bass. All right, 30 seconds of slap coming on up. And here's with the new software, you can do something cool, which is switch the cameras. Oh yeah, switching the cameras. Let's wait for it to stop wobbling. That's the laptop camera. Had a little wobble there. You know what I did is I forgot to set a timer. I have to set a timer next time. That was the rusty warm-up slap bass. I'll get the next one a little tighter. But yes, acoustic slap bass. You do have to work a little harder, but it's a good thick meaty sound. So there we go. My $5 is for a Quinn Lightbringer collab. Oh, we've got a few. If you're new to the channel, I will just point out there's a lot of videos, in the back catalog. But one playlist rather, is the Winds of Winter Predictions playlist. It's me and Quinn. We've got 19 videos previewing all the different plot lines of Winds of Winter. So yeah, check that out. And of course, we've got other various collaborations. One of those collabs on his channel, called Forgotten Magical Creatures, is up to over like 800,000 views. That thing is monstrous. Oh, thank you, Mod Mary. Thank you, David and Elisa. All right, cool. So yeah, I am checking out how to do stuff. I've got there's even sound effects. I think I've got a. Did you hear the DJ? Did you hear a cheap DJ air horn sound effect? I think you might have. I'll figure that out. I can load my own sounds in there and then do sound effects and. Ouch. Oh, that was loud, huh? Okay, sorry. I just blasted y'all with the air horn. I can't even hear it. I didn't suffer any of that pain. It was incredible. All right. Oh, I've got a sound effect volume slider. So I can do the quiet. Here, this is the quiet air horn. Oh, it's still pretty loud. There you go. Oh, I can see the volume. There you go. Okay. Well, in any case, soon I will have my own custom sound effects loaded in. You can see I got my little watermark here. I get the sound effects in, and yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff we can do. So today, I have said that it is an open Q&A, so we can talk about A Song of Ice and Fire. You can even ask me a Song of Ice and Fire question. Probably, hopefully don't ask any political questions because that'll take over the stream. But let's say anything except for politics. Give me throw it at me. We could talk about it. And of course, Song of Ice and Fire questions are good. And I've got it in the back of my mind. If you want, we can talk some Aegon, Rhaenys, and Visenya symbolism. I've got a bunch of material. That's probably the sound that broke the moon. Yeah, the first air horn. There it was. That was the Dragonbinder air horn. Sharp as a sword thrust. It split the air, shivering hot. Pew, pew, pew. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. Who's the hottest Game of Thrones guy, Elisa? Are you talking actors, I guess? Or are we talking about mentally who we think, how we think they look? I mean, Jaime's the most beautiful man. I think that's well established. But maybe you don't find that kind of overwhelming vanity and cynicism beautiful, and perhaps you would see someone like Brienne as the most beautiful. So it's, different criteria. Maybe Blackfish's rugged good looks, the silver streaked black hair. Maybe that's what some of y'all prefer. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Sir Loras is probably a good looking man. Satin can probably get it. Yeah, I bet so. Blackfish is a Chad. I think Blackfish is either celibate, like asexual, or maybe gay. I think there's some sort of personal issue why he hasn't married, and the books don't really say what, but Hoster's on his deathbed. He's like, has he married someone, anyone, some woman? And Catelyn's like, no, he won't. So it seems like there's something about Blackfish where is a personal choice why he's not married, but it's not really spelled out why. So I think the most likely answer is he probably is gay, but he could just be asexual, or maybe he had his heart broken and swore off romance, and maybe it's something like that. But who knows? Maybe he's protesting the patriarchy. Maybe Blackfish is definitely a cool character. Yeah, Ned thinks of Robert in his prime as a horned god. Yeah, Robert's definitely, he's got the mountain man good looks. But Elisa, what did you do to my stream? How are we starting off with this? It's all good, I guess. So I will just tell you, sorry everyone for canceling yesterday. I did have sort of just an emotional day. I was overwhelmed and, a couple of frustrating days in a row, not much sleep, and I just woke up yesterday, didn't have the mojo, and so I canceled the stream. And I did mention that I have ADHD and that sometimes that leads to, being emotionally overwhelmed or just not being able to handle shit, and needing a minute. And so I posted on YouTube about that and on Twitter. And just real quick, want to say thank you to everyone who commented and gave me a lot of words of encouragement, felt really good and supportive. And I just wanted to say, like, here's one for mental health awareness. I think it's good evidence that things are moving in a good direction as far as that goes. Like, someone like me can pretty much just raise my hand and say, hey guys, I don't have to lie and say, oh, I'm sick, I had the flu. I can say, hey, just having a mental health day and feeling down and can't do it. And everybody was super encouraging, and here I am today feeling better. And so, I just want to encourage everyone to, just realize that we're in a new world, and could be more open about that stuff. And I think people are understanding, and it feels good. It makes, someone like me or anyone else dealing with, Asperger's or anxiety or anything like that, makes us feel less like outcasts and weirdos. Like, oh, no one will understand our problems, and I just have to go in my room and, cry and just keep to myself or whatever. But everyone's really encouraging and understanding. So just want to say thank you, and also just want to point that out and encourage everyone else. Be open with your friends at least about mental health stuff. It helps people understand where you're coming from, and I think it's good for everyone. So yeah. I won't belabor the point, but I just want to say thank you. You guys are lovely, very encouraging. And so another reason I was a little bit overwhelmed yesterday was that I've been working on the Garden of Eden video, which is really, near and dear to my heart. And I'm got about halfway through it, and it was like my head was just so in it that it was hard for me to pull out of it and think about what to talk about. So I'm not finished with it. I will have it done in a day or two. It's coming along really good. I'm using all kinds of cool Renaissance art of Adam and Eve and Jehovah and all kinds of things. Jehovah is spelled with an I. Indiana. And that video is going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it. And so I am here today. My brain's feeling a little more clear, so we can definitely talk about A Song of Ice and Fire and stuff. But yesterday I just couldn't even think of what to talk about. So I have had some requests for talk about Sam, and one of the things I was thinking about doing is actually going back to my Green Zombies series and redoing that, because those videos are not monetized, because I used some Animals as Leaders music that I used to have permission from the record company to use. They at some point decided I don't have that permission anymore. So those are demonetized, and I've got to redo those. And the Green Zombies has all the good Sam symbolism, because it's all of that Herne the Hunter symbolism that goes back to his ancestors in his house. So that's where the Sam stuff is. Maybe we can drag up a little bit of that today. Steph Lyons and Sapphire Galaxy coming through with a couple super chats. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. And I'm trying to see if there's a way to put comments on the screen. I'll figure that out later. Okay, so I got some good questions here. One is from Isabel. What's your favorite mythical trope? Well, I think the world tree is probably the one, and I recommend a book called Hamlet's Mill, which is essentially a book about the cosmic mill as a myth theme. And the cosmic mill really is the same as the world tree. Sometimes it's like the navel stone of the world, an Omphalos stone, but essentially that stone just marks that celestial axis. It's oftentimes perceived as a tree like Yggdrasil, but sometimes it's perceived as a whirlpool or a mill or anything that turns the galaxy. And so that book, Hamlet's Mill, is about that specific archetype and myth theme, and it also about certain evidence of ancient astronomy going on with ancient people. So the Axis Mundi / World Tree, definitely one of my favorites. I mean, Fire of the Gods is probably my favorite of all time. I talk about it all the time, of course, because, and you'll see in this Adam and Eve video, we're going to get into it even more, but that's where it's all about. The Fire of the Gods is, mankind reaching for enlightenment, reaching for knowledge, and that's, to me, what it's all about. I'm driven by curiosity and the desire to understand things. That's pretty much has always ruled my decision-making in my life, so, yeah, I'll say Fire of the Gods. Good question. I want to talk about Sansa. We can talk about Sansa, Sydney. What do you want to talk about with Sansa? I do like Sansa, book Sansa, even though I am obviously a Dany fan first and foremost. Us book fans don't have to choose. We can like Dany and Sansa, as I do. So yeah, tell me what you want to talk about with Sansa, and we'll do it. Post-election recovery was a lot of LML, Phelan says with the super chat. Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm always happy to distract. If I ever do a politics thing, I'll keep it well and separate from everything else, so you can specifically choose to do that. But mostly my politics probably stay on Twitter, so yes, we're all recovering. Yo, speaking of Sansa, oh yes, Elisa Patience, you have like a YouTube channel or something. Didn't you do a new video? Yes, you did. Let's go ahead and pull it up and give Elisa Patience a shout out, because Elisa is my homie. And oh yes, there's her channel. 324 subscribers. We're growing strong. Sansa is Beauty, as in Beauty and the Beast, or she's Belle. Yeah, I guess from Beauty and the Beast. Cool. So that's awesome. One thing I am learning as I drop the link for the Sansa essay, boop, there it is in the chat. Oh, you're quite welcome, Elisa. Is that fairy tales are so important to study for storytelling purposes. Like, fairy tales really are the best stories. They're the classic stories, and fairy tales are great because they get right to the point. They don't waste time world building. Like everything is happening real quick, and they paint pictures with classic symbols and archetypes. And so I've just learned that, like, if you want to really key in on good story writing, it's all about the folk tales and the fairy tales. So I'm really glad that Elisa Patience is tackling that angle of A Song of Ice and Fire. Very cool. I've enjoyed your videos so far, Elisa. Yeah, and those older versions of the fairy tales, which Elisa is doing a good job of digging into, are, of course, a good bit darker. Oh, yes. One of the things I can do is adjust my lighting. Yeah, see, I can do this now. I couldn't do that in StreamYard before. So as the sun goes down here, I can just turn up the brightness a wee bit. Oh yeah. Oh yes. I can tint me out all crazy. Not easy being green. Oh, this is interesting. All right. I've got new powers, friends. New powers. Let me see if anyone followed up on the Sansa thing. Let's see here. And thank you, everyone, saying congrats for 30K. There is some stuff I'll be able to do now that I'm at 30K with the stickers and whatnot. I've got to set that up, though, so I'll have more on that in the future. I don't want to ramble about that, but I have some new little ways to support the channel and decorate your little handle in the chat there. Let's see here. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast is it's a great fairy tale, Isabel. I agree. Yeah, Little Red Riding Hood. Yeah, the older versions are definitely pretty dark. Yeah, those old European folklore fairy tales are just, they're pretty twisted. So Steph Lyons asking, do you think the gods in A Song of Ice and Fire are real? What do you think about the character symbolism of the gods in the stories, like how the gods embody them and symbolize them on Planetos? So I don't think the gods are real in a Stormlight Archive sense. In Brandon Sanderson's world, literally, like, the storm god is an entity in the clouds that speaks to the characters. I don't think there's anything like that going on. It is the possibility that some entities that are perceived as gods have magicians or human spirits or something behind them. For example, what people think of as the old gods, that's of course really the Green Seers, or the hive mind of the Green Seers. So who's R'hllor? I think that R'hllor is essentially more similar to the way that humans create deities. And this is something I really want to talk about in my book when I get into the Garden of Eden and just how to interpret symbolism in mythology. And I'm always sort of borrowing from Joseph Campbell when I talk like this. But essentially the idea is that humankind likes to put a face on things. And so the whole idea of a storm god is that we take the characteristics, the personality of the storm, if you will, and coalesce that into a being, an entity, with the characteristics of the storm. So storm gods are going to be wrathful, and they're going to be angry sometimes if they're not pleased. However, they also can bring fertility, because the rain brings fertility, right? And so that's what a storm god is. Essentially, it's a personification of the storm. So when we think about R'hllor, that really seems like in a world where magic is real, and the magic is specifically tied to the elements. You have this ice magic in the north. You've got the green seer magic tied to nature. The R'hllorists are they're using fire as a medium to channel magic, and all of their magic has to do with fire. It takes the form of fire. And so, if we humans can think of storm gods and fire gods and other things like that without having magic, like how much more so in a world with magic would people do that? And so that's how I see R'hllor. R'hllor is essentially like, people giving a face and a name to this elemental fire magic which people can tap into. Now, the exception to this would be potentially what we think of as the Great Other. I've been digging in lately a whole bunch about the idea of Night's King and Azor Ahai being the same person, about Azor Ahai having died, but his spirit maybe went into the Weirwood net and perhaps even still lives there. And I've got some ideas about the Weirwood net. It might have different parts of it, part of it that belongs to the others and a part that belongs to the Green Seers or something like that. But we've definitely seen a lot of clues that there might be an entity controlling the others and animating the others. And if there is such an entity, it's very likely to be dead Azor Ahai or dead Night's King, who I believe is the same person anyway. So something like that could be true. And if that's the case, as I've said many times, this would be very similar to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, where the main enemy is this guy called Inaluki, who used to be an Azor Ahai type of would-be hero figure who's sort of tragic and screwed things up when he tried to fix something. I don't want to get into the details, so I'm just going to keep it real general. Point is, ancient magician, magic sword hero, he dies, his spirit remains on the ethereal plane, and then at some point, he reemerges and comes back to the story. And so that is essentially and Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is a place that George has drawn a lot of ideas from. He's said many times he's a big fan of Tad Williams. And so there could be something like that coming where you have an Azor Ahai or Night's King spirit looking for a way to re-inhabit the real world. And of course, my best guess is that it'll be Euron that channels that entity and maybe even gets taken over by that entity. So I've talked about that a bit. So what is Howland Reed up to? Brittany asks. Well, he's keeping all the secrets. I mean, George has pretty much said that Howland is, we haven't seen him because he knows too much. So the only way we'll see him essentially will be when we need his knowledge, which would probably pertain to RLJ or maybe even the Isle of Faces, because according to the story that Howland's kids tell, Howland rode out to the Isle of Faces and talked to the Green Men during that tourney of Harrenhal. So, no, Mod Mary, the existence of magic, I don't think it means the existence of gods. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that we know magic exists, and we know that humans have a tendency to personify things into, entities, gods that are kind of like men and women or like animals or whatever else we could think of. So I think that it's likely that because magic is real, people are doing that even more. Strawberries and Candy with a super chat, thank you, says, I found your Dawn is Ice video while researching for my fan fiction, and now I've watched literally all your videos. Thank you so much for your content. Cool. Well, you know, writing is always kind of the subtopic here. When we talk about storytelling, we talk about archetype and symbolism. It's really all about, you know, writing and storytelling. Those are the elements that we're breaking down. And anytime you're doing literary analysis, that's what we're doing. It's just that, you know, most people that analyze A Song of Ice and Fire, they're coming at it looking at the plot, the character arcs, the motivations of the characters, whereas we're considering those things but diving deeper into the mythical archetypes and the symbolism and sort of trying to figure out how that complements the story. But it's really these are all just different elements of storytelling. So I'm very glad that, you know, if any of this that we're talking about here as we peel open George's writing, hopefully this is helping some of you guys become better writers. I know I'm learning a lot about writing and storytelling, obviously, by, you know, taking apart what George's done. So, yeah. Rosa Monk, hey LML, congrats on 30K. You and many other Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers, thank you for inspiring me to begin my first reread of the series. Yeah, the reread is where you really start catching, you know, what's in there. The first read, you're just trying to figure out Asha and Osha and what's going on and stuff like that. So Elisa and the chat are talking about Sansa and Sweet Robin. So there you could see Peter is kind of grooming Sansa to be a part of the eventual murder of Sweet Robin. It's pretty clear. I mean, Peter's basically spelled out that, like, Sweet Robin probably won't live, and here's what will happen if and when he dies, and it's really just a matter of when, and there's Harry the heir, and all this other stuff. So it's pretty clear to Sansa that, you know, Peter is not trying to keep Sweet Robin alive and may even kill him at some point. Peter's been putting Sansa in the position of having to control Sweet Robin, which usually involves telling him a lie or a softer version of the truth or something to keep him quiet, giving him more sweet sleep and stuff than he should be taking. So Sansa is being walked down this road of being complicit in the eventual murder of Sweet Robin. The question is, how far will that go? Will Sansa save Sweet Robin? Will she try to save Sweet Robin and fail? Will that be the thing that breaks her and Peter? There's a lot of ways that could go. I don't have a good read on that. I mean, George definitely likes tragedy and sorrow, so I wouldn't be surprised if Sweet Robin dies and George uses that as like a knife to drive into people's hearts and play with people's emotions. But I think the thing about Sansa is that the setup here is that she's eventually going to turn the tables on Peter Baelish. He's the giant in the castle that she's got to slay, you know, surely. And so, you know, how does that happen and when? Does it happen in Winterfell? Does it happen in the Vale? What's going to go on with Harry the heir? Is Harry the heir going to mistreat Sansa, or will Sansa have the power in that relationship? There's just so much in the Vale that we just really don't know how it's going to go. I do think it's just starting to get pretty interesting, though. Well, why would Sansa kill Peter? Well, she can figure out that Peter had something to do with Ned's death. She is increasingly starting to see Peter for who he is. If Peter tries to kill Sweet Robin, again, that could be the thing that would turn Sansa against him. Or Sansa could do it simply as a more of a cynical political move. She could realize that she actually has the power, especially once she's married to Harry. It's like, how much does she really need Peter? And Peter's not even popular in the Vale. So Peter Baelish has shown the tendency to undermine his own position through his feelings for Sansa and through his own sort of weakness. So I think he'll inevitably sow the seeds of his own downfall in some manner like that. Hey, Tulkus420. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Let me grab a vitamin water real quick, guys. I didn't bring a vitamin water to the party. Yeah, sorry. I'm out of yellow vitamin water. We're going to go with peach Snapple, which was my favorite drink before it was yellow vitamin water. So there you go. A Les Claypool fan? Me? Oh, gosh. I think this calls for some more bass playing. Let's see. How about... to defy the laws of tradition is a crusade for Les Claypool, but I can cover it. There you go. So yes, I'm a Primus fan. I learned how to play bass by trying to play Primus. And is this a breed love? I think it might be. It is. It is a truly awesome cheap acoustic bass. It's like a $600 acoustic bass. It kills stuff that's like twice as expensive, but anyways. Yeah, bringing all the noises. The super chat theremin is not hooked up. We have bass playing today instead of that, but all right. So what do we want to talk about now, guys? Let me scroll back. There's probably some good questions that I missed. A Tool fan? Oh yes. I'll do Tool next. Yeah, so we can... Okay, Aaron, that's a fair comment. He says, not to get too political, but Peter is George's manifestation of capitalism. Capitalism bringing about its own destruction, Marx would approve. Yeah, so if you want to be more specific, we could say predatory capitalism, or the worst sort of form of capitalism. Yeah, the worst aspects of a market-based system. Yeah, definitely Peter is exploiting that. He's engaging in... all kinds of fraud and currency manipulation and stuff when he's in King's Landing. He's lying to people about how much they owe. He's basically doing like embezzling and stuff. So I mean, he's definitely like your shady Wall Street executive. You know, that's definitely your Peter Baelish for sure. Your Wolf of Wall Street. Your Gordon Gekko. Absolutely. That's a good comment. I like that one. I missed your question, Worldwide Warrior. Was it a super chat question or a question? Let's see here. Let me scroll back. Oh, thank you, Minty, for the super chat. I see that one there. Yeah, just repeat your question, kind sir. What will the lyrics of A Song of Ice and Fire be? And will we see George Martin put it to script? Well, the lyrics to A Song of Ice and Fire are basically, Worldwide Warrior, do me a favor. It's I missed it. I don't see it in there. So if you could just tag me and repeat it right here, I will keep an eye out for it and get you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, check out the song Darkstar. We read the lyrics to Darkstar a couple weeks ago. And there's, George Martin talks about being a deadhead and how for deadheads you kind of always have Grateful Dead lyrics just sort of rolling around in your head. Of course, Robert Hunter, rest in peace, was the great lyricist for the Grateful Dead. And, Grateful Dead lyrics are very poetic, very, like, sketching images and things like that, but also talking about, parts of life that sort of resonate universally. And so, there's lots of Grateful Dead goodies in the books, exactly, Carl Karsnark. And, okay, cool, Worldwide Warrior, got your question. So yeah, the lyrics to the Song of Ice and Fire, it's surely a Grateful Dead song. Darkstar is probably a good place to start. But I do have, my best friend is like a huge Deadhead, so one of these days I'm going to get him on here, and we'll go deeper into that. He's found a couple things that I've not heard anybody else talk about, so yeah. Worldwide Warrior asks, can you talk about the repercussions of Varys murdering Pycelle and Kevin Lannister and supporting Aegon and Dany? So... if you remember, Varys is living in the walls right now. He is gone he's been gone for a while. So he's hiding out. He is undermining Cersei from inside the walls. And so essentially what we've got here is, the ramifications of it is that simply that Cersei is being undermined to facilitate Fagon's smooth conquest of King's Landing. And I think this is going to be pretty successful. I think that by the time we've already been given clues that Fagon is going to take Storm's End, or has taken Storm's End. And so once you've taken Storm's End, you've pretty much got a clean shot right to King's Landing. And if he's taken Storm's End, that means he will have defeated the Tyrell army and or turned it to his side. So I think fairly early in the book, maybe halfway through the book, Fagon will be taking King's Landing from Cersei. I do expect that we're going to get a Sept of Baelor type event where Cersei will use wildfire to kill a bunch of people as she's losing the city. She's obviously a Mad King Ares echo, and she's obviously, going down that road of madness, and she has sociopathic rage for everyone. And so, yeah, I think that's what Varys is essentially setting up. He's setting up basically Cersei to continue to look like a monster. He's enabling her worst instincts, getting rid of anyone who could check those instincts, so that she will be a full villain. And when Fagon, my name is Fagon, comes riding into King's Landing gloriously, he will be, greeted as a hero. He will be, because if you remember, Dany's House of the Undying Vision, that seems to be about Fagon, there's a cloth dragon on poles greeted by a cheering crowd. And this is in the list of lies that she's supposed to slay, it seems like, from the narrative. And so the Mummer's Dragon, and I always say this when people come at me with Fagon as, Trugon or whatever, is that there's really, how else do you explain the Mummer's Dragon, right? Like, Varys and Illyrio are mummers, and they're controlling a dragon who's Fagon, and Dany explains that a, quote, Mummer's Dragon is basically the enemy that's trotted out for a hero to win in follies or puppet shows and stuff. So the Mummer's Dragon, literally, it's the fake dragon. It's the thing trotted out for the hero to slay. So pretty clear to me that Fagon is the Mummer's Dragon, and the key thing is that he'll be greeted by cheering crowds. So when he takes power in King's Landing, he'll be very popular, and this will make it more complex. When Dany comes to King's Landing, they won't be under the rule of oppressive Cersei begging for rescue. Things will be going a little better. And maybe Fagon is real, and maybe Fagon is Dany's, relative. I guess it'd be her nephew. Yeah, her nephew. And so this, I expect George to use this as a good heart and conflict, string pulling for Dany when she comes back to King's Landing. And hopefully this will help Dany realize that she shouldn't just use her dragons to conquer Westeros, and that actually there's a better use for her dragons. So we will see how Dany slaying the lie of Fagon doesn't mean that she'll kill him. I mean, probably Fagon will die, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. She could just leave him on the throne while she goes north to handle things. Who knows? I did talk about in my Darkstar video, though, that we're going to have some fun drama in King's Landing with Darkstar, Arianne Martell, Fagon, the Sand Snakes. Definitely going to be some messed up politics there. So, oh my goodness, I haven't even checked my PayPal.me super chats. Let's do that right now. Oh goodness, there they are. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. One from Jennifer. Congrats. I missed the collabs with Robert, but looking forward to more Quinn collabs. Yeah, Robert's been busy lately. We don't seem to work together anymore, but he's got a great channel, of course, In Deep Geek. And let's see here. Here's Jennifer says, I can never get the chat to work. I have a question. I kind of thought Dany's last scenes in a dance where she's having blood and dehydration issues. Does that mean anything symbolically? Is she getting her fertility back or something else? I don't know. I'm not able to figure that out, or if that's her moon blood coming back, or if that's a miscarriage, or if it's literally the bloody flux. It could also be the bloody flux. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm also not an expert on those sorts of things. So we'll just have to see what's going on there. There's definitely some symbolism going on in that whole chapter. She's wandering through the green sea, and she's gotten sick on green berries. So the symbolism implies that she's tripping like a green seer. And then we have the grass talking to her and the stars talking to her and all kinds of things like that. So, yeah. Atris Rain says, any advice to new YouTubers with channels? Also, biggest lesson learned that you did not anticipate? Oh, good question. And I love giving people advice on how to start their own blogs or channels or anything. So, number one thing is passion. You need to have a channel or a blog that is about whatever you burn hot about, whatever you're the most passionate about. That's what people grab onto. You know, channels that try to cover 1,000 different things. You know, if they don't have that passion, people could tell. They can smell that out. Like, oh, you're just trying to make a buck. Cover the latest hot thing, you know. So you want to make a connection with your fans by essentially tuning into stuff that you're really passionate about. And obviously, I'm talking about symbolism and mythology, which I love. And the thing I didn't anticipate was, oh gosh, I don't know if biggest lesson learned. Well, you got to get on all the YouTube tagging stuff early. You know, you can spend a bunch of time making videos and writing stuff, and if you're not doing the work to promote it, then you're sort of like working really hard but not getting the reward for your work that you're going to want. So try to you know, the tagging your videos with all the words the keywords that could bring people to your videos. That's a really important thing. Having a good thumbnail that's really engaging, not too much text on the thumbnail, titles that are engaging. Like, this is something I've tried to get better at over time. I've definitely learned a lot from Quinn about that. Quinn is really good with, you know, catchy thumbnails and good names that get people to dive right into the topic. So, for example, let's do a little screen share. Here we go. I will show you my Garden of Eden thumbnails. I made 2, right? And, oh gosh, sorry, one second. There we go. So, okay, so the first one I did was, I was going to call it Paradise Gained. And let me see here. I think share screen. There we go. Perfect. So you can see this was what I was going to make the title. Paradise Gained, Eve the Serpent and the Acquisition of Free Will. It's very kind of esoteric and lofty and makes perfect sense to me. Of course, it's a play on Milton's Paradise Lost. And I'm talking about the apple eating the fire of the gods, the food of the gods, as being a good thing, as, you know, a step forward for humanity. So it's paradise gained instead of paradise lost. However, it doesn't tell you exactly right away what I'm talking about. And when people see the thumbnails, they're very teeny, teeny, tiny. And though this picture is beautiful when it's blown up big, when it's small, it's a little harder to see. And so I did this. Based on Quinn's advice, he said, take a picture that's closer up of Eve. Oh, whoops. Here we go. There we go. And call it Eve Did Nothing Wrong. And I'm still playing with the text on this. But see, now this is more direct. It tells you exactly what I'm talking about. It's a little bit controversial. Eve did nothing wrong. Well, what's that? Oh, she was supposed to be the first sinner. What do you mean? And here she is with the apple, so you can see exactly what's going on. And also pictures of people's faces tend to get the most engagement, other than wider pictures or stuff like that. So, there's some YouTube tips for you. Just a little behind the scenes talk for you. And I'm using all of the art in the actual video. So, you know, you don't have to get too attached to any one piece of art, because you can use it prominently, even if it's not the title. But the thing about the thumbnails is that, again, people see them very small. So someone's face is usually the best. It takes up most of the picture, and people are like, oh, it's Just people relate the most to stuff that's about a person. When it's a picture of a city or a thing, it's just not as engaging. So, anyways, that's enough about that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. The Eve of Free Will. Oh, that's a pretty clever title. That's good, Marty. That's good. Yeah, there's yes, and of course we don't know what the fruit was. I mean, it's a fable, so it's more likely to have been a fruit that is native to the Middle East, which would not be an apple, perhaps a fig or something like that. But of course, it doesn't really matter. It's a food of the gods. So let's see here. Does this tell me how many I'm watching? Okay, you got 247 watching, 200 upvotes. Oh, you guys are great. I don't even have to ask you guys to click like anymore. You're just doing it. Thanks. I really appreciate that. And once again, like I said, if you want to send in a donation to the channel, the best way to do it is paypal.me/mythicalastronomy. I get to keep 100% of that, and the super chats, YouTube takes a nice little chunk. So I will just throw that out there. That helps me out. Times are tough right now. Yes. Just moved, so definitely got the financial stress going on. Samantha Caldwell, thank you for sending a PayPal donation in. Says, finally watched your older vids. Your newer stuff about Euron has him potentially riding Viserion. In your older vids, you predict it might be Tyrion. Are you more inclined to think Euron will get Viserion, or will it be a bitch you thought moment with Tyrion? So with Tyrion, the symbolism does link him to the White Dragon. Which way gets me the most money? PayPal.me/mythicalastronomy. That's the one that gives me the most money. Yeah, I keep 100% of that, as opposed to about 75% of the YouTube thing. I appreciate it all, of course, but particularly if you have a larger donation, definitely send it through PayPal. That's an awesome way to go. So with Tyrion, I feel like Tyrion's dragon riding is going to be incidental and in the moment. Like in the heat of battle, he's just going to end up hopping on a dragon somehow and riding it just for a second. I don't think he's going to be a full dragon knight or dragon lord. I think that he's going to essentially facilitate. He's going to help Dany and Jon learn how to do that. But I think he will get a moment of climbing on the back of a dragon somehow. But ultimately, I do think Viserion will be controlled by Euron and, turned against the other dragons. I definitely think that is coming. So perhaps Tyrion's dragon moment could be coming soon in Meereen. Yeah, that's definitely could be happening. And of course, Tyrion could be a Targaryen himself. There's definitely a certain amount of evidence for that. And I covered that in my Tyrion Targaryen Bloodstone Compendium number 5 podcast from way back when. He definitely is tied to dragons. So he's either a Targaryen or his role is to help, Jon and Dany, and in that way be sort of associated with dragons. But I definitely think there's some potentially some fire to that smoke that Aerys and Joanna Lannister, are the parents of Tyrion. So, and then there's also Chimera symbolism that Tyrion has, which means that Aerys and Tywin could be his father, which is weird, but he does have the mismatched eyes, which is a signature mark of that. And the Chimera has interesting symbolism, which is used all over Song of Ice and Fire. So, do Blackfires have dragon dreams? Absolutely. We have to assume that probably Valerians did too, yeah. John the Fiddler had dragon dreams. I don't know about Daemon Blackfire, but John the Fiddler definitely did. So yeah, that would be enough. Yeah, I don't see Tyrion blowing Dragonbinder or quote-unquote getting a dragon. I just, you see how Tyrion is in battle. Like, he's running around, he's mixing it up, he has an idea, he tries to pull something off. Like, could totally see him somehow ending up on the back of a dragon, or thinking that he can talk to the dragon and, if somebody needs to shoo it away, or if it lands and it's about to eat somebody important, like, Tyrion has a certain kind of courage to throw himself in the middle of stuff, so I can see that happening. Why not the pomegranate? No, yeah, the pomegranate is obviously a good symbolic fruit. The point is that in the Adam and Eve story, it's not really important what the fruit is, because the fruit really just represents free will. I mean, the whole idea of taking the fruit off the tree, it's the tree of knowledge. The entire thing is a metaphor for expanding your consciousness. And if there's any sort of specific fruit, the real fruit is, mushrooms. It's stoned ape theory, which I'm going to talk about in my Lucifer Means Lightbringer book, which I'm just starting to write. I think that stoned ape theory actually makes a lot of damn sense when you're talking about what caused the great anthropological leap forward. What was it that catalyzed man to go from nearly 1 million years of making the same stone tools and not really advancing mentally to suddenly having language, representative drawing, symbolism, all that stuff? Anthropologists have been wondering for years what caused this, quote, great leap forward. And going all the way back to Terence McKenna, I think, was the first one to talk about stoned ape theory. I'm not sure if he got it from somewhere, but he's the one that popularized it. And essentially the idea is, not stoned ape, but rather, tripping Neanderthal man. You have not even Neanderthal, but a more modern, just before, Homo sapiens, or Homo sapiens, but without the lights on. I don't know all the classifications, so whatever it is. But the Great Leap Forward is speculated to have happened between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago. So a long time ago, but not that long when you talk about the overall time frame of humanity. So what was it? We're looking for some mysterious thing that can expand the consciousness of man and enable them to sort of perceive themselves, to become fully self-aware. Well, if you've ever taken mushrooms or other psychedelic substances, you know that it is just that. It is a trigger. It can bring on new thoughts and expanded views. It can remove mental blocks. Creative insight can come in a trance. And it can also be, these kind of states, altered states, can be reached through meditation, fasting, and trance, as well as psychedelics. But it's a similar place that magicians and shamans go to. And so, yes, this if the fruit is anything, we're talking about psychedelic fruit. And that myth is all over the place. Look at the Blue Lotus stuff in Egypt and some other places. Then I'm going to do more research and see. I'm going to track down all the potential stoned ape theory, food of the god myths, and collect them and see what I can find. Yeah, the acacia tree. Yep. So. How much for some of that weirwood paste? Yeah, I got what you need, buddy. What you need, man. What you want. What you want. Weirwood paste is expensive. You have to bring a friend and then eat his brains. So, And of course, if you're not familiar with the whole weirwood paste thing, that Jojen paste, I do have a video about the Jojen paste. So, all my best jokes are in that one. Check that out. Thoughts on the pink letter? No, I'm too basic to know who wrote that one. I put out some thinking on it in our Winds of Winter preview, and people just tore me to pieces. And we're like, no, it couldn't be that because this. And I've forgotten most of it. So no, I don't know who wrote it by now. Could be Mance, could be Stannis, could be Melisandre. I don't know. It could be Ramsey. It's hard to say. I just don't know. I think I've missed a couple super chats. Let me see. Primark Mustard. House Lightbringer has achieved 30K. Thank you, Primark. Yes, I have. Cool. Thanks, Gabriel, with the PayPal.me/mythical astronomy donation. Hey, Lamel. Congrats on 30K. If the OG Knights Watch were Green Seers, and if Azor Ahai was the villain who invaded the Weirwood, as alleged in Timeline Heresy, could the Night's Watch have been in league with him initially, turning on him and establishing their vows as penance? Yeah, it's all so tightly connected. Something like that is likely. And in fact, if you think about the Night's King legend, it says that he bound his brothers with strange sorceries, right? So that could be talking about Night's King turning and sorceling the first men of the Watch to become others. Or it could just be like Azor Ahai's warrior buddies that got turned into the others, and that got remembered as him as Night King, like I said, ensorceling his brothers. But there's definitely that idea. So the Night's Watch and the others are almost like two sides of the same coin. The others and the brothers, the white shadows and the black shadows. So the origins of the two could be connected. And it all goes back to the Weirwoods, right? So when we look at the others side of things, there's abundant evidence that the White Walkers of the Wood come from the woods, that they are tied to the Weirwoods, they are emanations of the Weirwoods, they're kind of like pissed off tree spirits, if you will. And the way that they raise the dead almost seems like skin changing, but translated into the language of the undead, like they're skin changing corpses or something. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously, but safe to say, a lot of evidence tying the White Walkers to the Weirwoods. Then if you go over to the Night's Watch side of things, the Night's Watch say their oaths to the Weirwood trees. The Night's Watch recruits who worship the Seven don't do that, but everyone who worships the First Men, like Jon Snow, they say their oaths in the Weirwood Grove of Nine. And of course, if you go back far enough in time, before the Andals came to Westeros, that means that the first men of the Night's Watch would all have been, people who worship the old gods, and they all would have said their oaths to the Green Seers. Did I say something? Okay, well, the first men, they worship the Weirwoods. You know what I'm trying to say. They worship the old gods. And so essentially, the idea that the first Night's Watch men were giving their oaths to the Weirwoods makes sense, because we're also told that the Children of the Forest helped the first men of the Night's Watch band together and defeat the others. And we're also told that the Children of the Forest helped the last hero, who was also involved in the Night's Watch banding together to defeat the others. So any way you slice it, the Children of the Forest and the Green Seers had a heavy role in creating the Night's Watch, in helping the Night's Watch beat the others. And of course, the Children of the Forest also have this tradition of giving dragonglass to the Night's Watch. So the Night's Watch and the others are both tied to the Green Seers and the Weirwoods, and they could be tied directly to each other as well. We're just going to have to wait to see how all that shakes out. But yeah. The Green Bard says, in your history you talk about Jon as a Mithras figure. The Mithras myth has Mithras killing a bull with his head turned away. Why do you shy away from the suggestion that Qhorin is Gerald Hightower? Because, well, for a couple of reasons. And I'll explain what Green Bard is talking about there with the White Bull. So Gerald Hightower, I mean, I'm not 1,000% that he's not alive, but I don't think he could be Qhorin Halfhand, because Gerald Hightower is too famous of a person, just like Qhorin Halfhand can't be Arthur Dayne, because people know who these people look like, and there's just no way you could go into hiding by being a commander of one of the castles of the Night's Watch. That's just not a low-profile, incognito thing to do if you're trying to fake your own death. If you're trying to fake your own death, you do what John Connington did. You let people put out a story that you drunk yourself to death, and you go to Essos. That's how you fake your own death. And then you dye your hair and all that stuff. So I don't think Qhorin or Mance or anybody can be a Tower of Joy person. Now, the myth of Mithras, one of the famous pictures of Mithras, he's killing the White Bull, and the White Bull is either a friend to Mithras or a part of Mithras or both. We don't have much information on Mithraism because it's mostly pictures and not too many writings have survived, so we have to guess. But the point is, he slays the White Bull, and this is some sort of rebirth thing where Mithras is reborn and the world is reborn. The bull's blood flows out and covers the world or something like that. So this is a cataclysmic, apocalyptic, Christ-like death and resurrection thing that Mithras is doing, and somehow it involves the sacrifice of his White Bull companion. So Jon Snow is Mithras, and then at the Tower of Joy, we have Gerald Hightower, whose nickname is the White Bull, and he's literally dying there as Jon is born. So just as Mithras is reborn when the White Bull is slain, Jon Snow is born when the White Bull is slain. And now again, when we go to Jon's resurrection, his rebirth, I expect his white wolf companion, Ghost, to be sacrificed to enable Jon's resurrection, as I've said many times. And I think, of course, the silver lining of this, don't be too sad, is that Jon's spirit will have merged with Ghost's spirit, and so you'll have a merged wolf-man spirit, and that will go back into Jon's body, and Jon will be the wolf man, but the wolf body is probably going to be sacrificed in true Mithras fashion. So white wolf, white bull is slain to enable the rebirth. It's going to happen, yeah. No, so do I think Dany will reach Asshai? So George has said that he originally planned for Dany to go to Asshai, but changed his mind about that because it's just too far. So what I think is going to happen instead is that Dany is going to gain access to a glass candle via Marwyn the Mage, who has access to glass candles and is on his way to King's Landing, or not King's Landing, I'm saying Slaver's Bay, to help Dany prepare to fight the others and, the last battle for the, to save the world and all that shit. So if you put a glass candle in Dany's hands, she's going to be more easily able to communicate with Quaithe, maybe directly. Maybe she'll learn how to use the glass candle and be able to go to Asshai and rummage around in all the Orly Blackstone buildings and libraries and find some spirits that'll tell her the truth about something. So what I think is most likely is that Dany will have the glass candle. She'll probably see the gemstone emperors again that she saw in her Wake the Dragon dream. They might have words for her. Yeah, it's going to be astral projection and glass candle. And that also works from a writer's perspective. Like, why would you want to ruin the mystery of Asshai by going there on a ship and getting off the dock and having your assistant take your bags and whatever else? Like, that would take away too much of the mystery. So Dany going there in a dream, glass candle, astral projection type of thing, she'll only catch glimpses of it. It'll remain very mysterious and creepy, and George doesn't have to pin it down. And that's, of course, the key to real horror and mystery is not to give too much away. So. Yeah, so Elisa Patience says, I love LML's Azor Ahai equals Night's King, but I also love the Stark theory that Night's King was the 13th commander of the Night's Watch and that Azor Ahai was his Stark bro who took him down. I think that's absolutely possible. Occasionally I throw out the disclaimer that when I talk about Azor Ahai, we could be talking about a type of warrior. You could have had a whole crew of flaming sword warriors. Like, for example, the first Targaryens that came to Westeros and conquered Westeros. Imagine hundreds of years in the future, they could be remembered as one person, as the Dragon Lord who came to Westeros. And actually it was 3 people that all rode dragons. So could definitely be something like that. I've mentioned that there's a lot of Night's King, Last Hero type of relationships, or good Azor Ahai, evil Azor Ahai characters that fight each other or trade places with each other, and frequently they're either brothers, father-son, or uncle-nephew. We've seen so many variations on all of those things. So it could be any of those. Brandon the Breaker Stark, who supposedly beat the Night's King, that could be the Last Hero. That could be Azor Ahai's nephew. They could both be Azor Ahai people in the sense that they both have magic swords. George, the whole point of this is that this is 8,000-year-old history that's been turned into myth. So George probably isn't really ever going to pin down who exactly was who. In the modern story, we see all these permutations and variations of this idea of Last Hero and Night's King, Night's Watch and the others clashing. And so probably the best clue about what the specific things were that happened in the Dawn Age will come when we see what happens this time around. And we'll be able to draw those parallels a little more closely. Like, for example, the main 3 heroes that are shaping up to defeat the others are obviously Dany, Jon, and Bran. All 3 of those people are going to have to use all of their magic and whatever destiny and shit they've got to defeat the others. And even if they have conflicts between the 3 of them, those are your 3 heroes. They will all be looking like a last hero, looking like an Azor Ahai figure. They will all play the role in different ways. And then we have secondary characters like Davos and Sam and Arya and other people that will also do Azor Ahai things. So I don't think George is ever going to pin it down too much. He's having fun with the whole House of Mirrors, mythical archetypes being permutated everywhere. And you could also think about Azor Ahai as like George's version of the hero's journey. So the Azor Ahai story, you see it replicated in all the POV characters in different ways. Use your destiny and shit. LML 2020. Yes, quote me on that. Yeah, and the Azor, the Nissa Nissa and Knight's Queen connections are intriguing because, you know, Nissa Nissa is essentially murdered by Azor Ahai. But then when you look at Knight's Queen, she kind of sounds like she's the one who has the power over Night's King. Even though it says Night's King caught her and took her back and made her his queen, you know, he gave her his seed and soul to do that. And so that sounds like she's the magical being and he's the human being messing with magical forces he doesn't understand, and she's potentially taking his life force and making the others with it. So it does sound a lot more like Night's Queen is in charge. And if Nissa Nissa and Night's Queen are the same person or they're connected in some way, it could sort of all make sense. Nissa Nissa almost coming back and having revenge on Azor Ahai, or righting the balance, something like that. All right, guys, I'm gonna take like a 30-second intermission if I can figure out how to do that. Let's see. Oh, I know what I can do. Yeah. I can do a screen share. Oh, but then I've got to... You can still see me. There we go. Hey, we did it. All right. Doing secret things in the background that nobody can see. Anyway, thanks for coming, everybody. Very much appreciated. You guys are a beautiful audience. Yada, yada, yada. Ooh, Gorilla Glue. This is a good one. One of my favorites, Gorilla Glue. Never a lighter when you need one, huh? All right, there we go. And we're back. Yes, we're doing stuff. So, let's see here. Talk about some books for a second. Pull a Quinn's ideas, if you will. So, this is called Arc by Stephen Baxter. And I set it right here while I'm talking about it. So, Arc is a cool book. It's about humanity finding out that the Earth is going to be uninhabitable within the next 100 years or 50 years or something like that. And so humanity has to build means of survival. They try to build an underwater habitable thing, and they build a space ark. and they also make some big cruise liners because it's a flood scenario where I think the premise was like they found there were secret oceans under the Earth's crust, huge bodies of water locked under the crust, and the scientists discovered them. They started to leak out, and they're like, oh gosh, this is going to accelerate global warming, sea level rise, and pretty soon the entire Earth almost will be covered with water. Premise doesn't really matter, but this book, Ark, right there it is, right there, boop, by Stephen Baxter, it's about the space ark. And so the whole book is about these 80-some-odd special cadets who were chosen, different ethnicities and backgrounds and talents and all this stuff, and then trained by all the world government and all that to be humanity's potential only surviving humans that get on a spaceship, and they're essentially taking off for the closest habitable Earth-like planet. In this timeline, they find another Earth-like planet, and they shoot for it. And so this book follows all these people in this space ark to go and find this planet. And they're hearing about the Earth as they're doing it, so they're still tied to the drama that's happening on Earth. But the politics that the author gets going inside the space ark with all the power plays and the drama that goes on, it's so interesting. And so the reason why I'm talking about this book is because a lot of people over the years have recommended me a book called Seven Eves by... who's that one by? Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I'll look it up in a second. But the Seven Eves book is a similar premise. It's a space ark, humanity trying to live by putting as many people as they can up in space. The Earth only has a couple years before it gets destroyed in that one. A lot of people have recommended me to it because the operative thing in Seven Eves, the book starts off with the moon having just been struck by some sort of they don't know what, a comet or something, that essentially the moon has broken apart into 7 pieces, and there's only a limited amount of time before they're all going to collide and basically bathe the Earth in fire and kill everyone. And so humanity has to try to escape Earth on a space ark. And the Seven Eves book was very slow. It took a long time to get going, and it seemed like the guy just wanted to describe space objects in meticulous detail, and people, like all the cylinders and the things, and like it was just, I couldn't read it, man. I had to bail like 6 hours into the audiobook, and I just want to recommend this book, Ark, because it's a similar premise but much more enjoyable to me, and it's kind of like if you're going to write this sort of story, then that's the way to go. Stephen Baxter's also done some other cool books. He did one called Evolution, which follows the evolution of like little marsupials and stuff all the way up to man. And so the chapters go, each chapter you advance and you're inside the mind, if you will, of a different animal as they get smarter and smarter. And it's really interesting. It's a very experimental writing style. But yeah, Stephen Baxter, there you go. Random book recommendations from yours truly. People ask me sometimes about that. What else have I read? And I always draw a blank when I'm asked. David sending in a paypal.me/mythicalastronomy donation. Thank you, David. Atris Rain, glad to donate in full to a deserving channel. What's up with Danny giving birth to a dragon-like child? Could she be infected with the same worms that were in Fire and Blood? Okay, so first of all, I will direct you towards a couple of videos. There's a live stream on my channel called Dracomorph, which is all about the fireworms and what they might have to say about creating the blood of the dragon and creating humans that have reptilian DNA and the dragon bond and all that. Of course, the Dracomorph video that I did is piggybacking on top of Crowfood's daughter's videos. And that's a YouTube channel called The Disputed Lands. And she has 2 videos about the origins of the dragon bond Highly recommend those videos. They're great. Total agreement with her research there. And the Dracomorph just takes that idea further. But essentially, two different things going on. Araya's worms are some sort of parasite. And she supposedly has been to Valeria when she hopped on the back of Valeria on the Black Dread and went for a ride out of her control. And if she didn't go to Valeria, she must have gone to Sothorios, because she picked up this parasitic worms, but these worms are hot. They cook her from the inside, right? And by the time she dies, her skin is blistering and boiling and burning like bacon. Her eyes are melting in their sockets. She's literally being cooked by these worms that break out of her. But the worms, when they break out of her, they have human hands and faces and worm bodies. So it seems like there's some sort of xenomorph, like DNA combination thing. And when I say xenomorph, I'm talking about the movie Aliens. You know, if you remember, they have the face huggers, and they lay the egg inside the human, and then the thing that breaks out is like a combination of the human DNA and the what's called the xenomorph DNA. And eventually, we see the xenomorphs combine with other animals, and they create different mutated offsprings. So it seems like what's happened is these worms that got into Araya multiplied and absorbed her DNA because they're part human, and they're really this like some weird freaky accidental cross that have human hands and faces and worm bodies, which is a very impractical body design, if you will. So that is one thing. Those parasites. Danny having the dragon lizard child. First of all, Miriam Azdur's magic was probably involved in that somehow. I'm not sure to what extent, but she had the intent and the ability to mess with that pregnancy, and probably did. Now, the Targaryens, the thing is, Danny's not the only one to have a lizard baby. Of course, Rhaenyra had one. Maegor fathered a few. There's a few out there. There's more than you think. And so it appears that it's just something that happens sometimes with the Targaryens. And the logical conclusion is that the Targaryens have some amount of reptilian DNA. They are human-animal hybrids. They have a latent lizard reptilian something or other to their genetics. And sometimes that expresses itself. And they have worm-like babies, lizard babies. There's a variety of traits that happen with them, but they are, mutated. And so that heavily suggests that somehow they found a way to combine the DNA of humans and lizards, or worms, or dragons, or wyverns, or something. I just remembered that somebody asked me about Tool earlier. Let me give you a little Tool. Let's see here. I haven't played this in a long time. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I have to... Man. Sorry. That's been a minute for that one. It's a tricky bass line, too. Hey, it's my shirt. There we go. There I am. Yeah, you heard what I was trying to play. I was trying. Let me see if I can get it. That's frustrating. I know I can do better than that. Hang on a second here. Yes. Okay, so it's here. It's in D, of course. And then it goes, there we go. That's a little bit less embarrassing. I'm a Tool fan. Let me butcher their riff so badly you can't really even tell what it is. But I'm a fan. There we go. That's better. All right. There was Proto-Molecule in the Moon Meteors. Yeah, so that's another one. When I was reading Seven Eves, I was like, man, if you're going to do a dark, just off of Earth kind of science fiction things, I mean, man, we should talk about I'm so bad with names. What's the show we're talking about, guys? The Expanse. Yes, The Expanse. Well, I haven't read The Expanse, and I haven't watched... I'm like 3 seasons into it, and I stopped watching. I need to go back to it. But yeah, The Expanse is awesome. If you want to do that sort of low-tech, like I said, just 50 years into the future, 100 years into the future kind of sci-fi, The Expanse is friggin' awesome. And The Expanse has good characters, too, which is always the main thing. Highly recommend film for all who haven't explained it. Excalibur, 1981. Who haven't experienced it. I haven't seen that one. I'm badly in need of some Arthurian schooling up, too, so maybe I'll have to check that one out. Yeah, I definitely like where The Expanse seems to be going. Okay, so let me ask you guys a question here. So I've got about 230 of you chilling. Obviously, like I said, I've got this next video. It's going to be about the Garden of Eden. It has nothing to do with the Song of Ice and Fire. I am going to be talking about a lot of the mythology that we have researched in the course of researching A Song of Ice and Fire. However, it's not tied to A Song of Ice and Fire. It's just a video about mythology. It may not surprise you that I would like to do that more. I'd like to make videos about things that are not A Song of Ice and Fire, and particularly I'd like to get into talking about just mythology in general, and also looking at other movies or books in a one-off fashion that I think have good symbolism and mythology in them. Like, I could tackle, there's all kinds of movies I could tackle, that have symbolism in them and get into it. So, I guess what I'm wondering is what brings you guys to the channel. There's basically 3 things that we do here. We've A Song of Ice and Fire. There's lots of A Song of Ice and Fire talk. There's mythology and symbolism, which is sort of always blended together. And then there's my crazy ass. There's me, the host, the personality, and people generally come to a YouTube channel for some combination of the host and the content. And the people that like the content generally like there's some people that like this kind of content and that kind of content. So what I'm wondering is, if I branch off from A Song of Ice and Fire and start talking about either just raw mythology or other movies and books that are, doing a really good job of using mythology, was that something you guys would be into? Or are you going to be like, oh man, that's boring. I only want to talk about the Tower of Joy. Looks like you guys are behind me. All right, sounds good. All right, glad to hear it. I was hoping that you would say that. I feel like most of the people that are coming here are generally, if you don't like mythology, probably not watching this live stream, right? So I guess I've kind of screened for that. But the thing about Song of Ice and Fire and this whole thing that I'm doing is that it's a learning experience. I have learned more in the last 5 years by unpacking A Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know what the comparison is, but I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I certainly learned more than in the previous 5 years of my life. I might compare it to when I turned 17 or 18, I started reading Graham Hancock and getting beyond my sort of dogmatic Christian upbringing and expanding my mind and exploring the world. So there's about 5 years of like really hardcore reading that I did between 17 and 23. I definitely learned a lot. But the last 5 years of my life have been very dynamic. I've really grown as a person, and I've just discovered so many concepts that have touched me in a deep way. In a Joseph Campbell, mythology that moves you and brings out the true essence of your being kind of way. And this is where my passion for this channel comes from, really. It's not just talking about A Song of Ice and Fire, although I love the story. It's the mythology and all of the stories and ideas that George has gathered together in A Song of Ice and Fire, as if it were some sort of time capsule for all of his favorite myths and histories and comics and characters and movies and everything else. And he's got them all, his own versions of all the stuff in A Song of Ice and Fire. So it's following those influences outside of A Song of Ice and Fire that's really been so rewarding for me, and for a lot of you in the fandom that like this kind of analysis. So it seems logical to me to continue that learning journey and go ahead and follow the paths that George has set us on, because I don't think he's doing this all just to prove how clever he is. Like when he puts the Green Man and the nature cycle mythology in there, when he uses all these various goddesses from Greek and Roman mythology. He even goes into Asian mythology and gives us Amaterasu, the sun goddess, as the maiden maid of light. Like, he's encouraging us to learn. He's inviting us to do research, to do just what we do in the fandom and on this channel, and go and dig into this stuff, like pomegranates. I think there's some story about pomegranates, right? And then, a week later, you're an expert on Persephone mythology and what that means. And then when you see Peter Baelish trying to serve Sansa pomegranates in the Vale, you can be like, oh, he's a Hermes figure trying to trap Sansa. And Sansa refuses the pomegranates. And then Peter talks about, oh, I love eating them, but they always leave you with these sticky red hands. Red hands, So Peter is eating the pomegranates and he's red-handed and guilty. He's going to pay the price for his sin. Sansa, meanwhile, doesn't eat the pomegranates, so we know, because of mythology, that she's not going to be stuck in Peter Baelish's Hermes underworld realm, and that we can expect her to be able to escape. So, it complements the story, it teaches us about history, and like I said, I have to think that this is what George is encouraging us to do. And the same thing with actual world history, you see Lannisters and Starks. Eventually you hear that that's actually Yorks and Lancasters, and then you might learn something about English history if that's what you're into. I tend to skew for the mythology myself. I don't find English history Renaissance history to be terribly interesting, but some people really like that. So, it's all a learning experience, and that's why I love the comments like the one we saw earlier about someone who's improved their own writing by watching these videos and essentially following this trail of learning from George. So yeah, that's what it's all about. And it's kind of what my book is going to be about, in the sense that I'm writing about how to understand mythology and symbolism, and how to keep it in the right context, and particularly how to make sense of all of our religious upbringings. Like, a lot of us were raised Christian, some of us perhaps raised Jewish or Muslim or other religions. Particularly I'm thinking of the monotheistic religions, though, and particularly, American westernized Christianity. That's the paradigm a lot of us operate under, and that's obviously where my experience comes from. So it's kind of a don't throw the baby out with the bathwater thing with religion is the kind of the crass way that I could put it. Anytime you're talking about the ideas that form the backbone of a religion or a worldview or a cultural identity, we're talking really old stories here. We're talking the classic stories, the classic archetypes and myths. And even though all kinds of people come along and turn these stories into dogma, and they use it for all kinds of bad purposes, those sacred stories are always important. And so it's for me, there's a reconciling that happened. There was a phase that I went through where I left Christianity and I was very anti-religion and anti-Christian. Maybe repeated some of the words that you hear from people like Christopher Hitchens, sort of the jaded atheist. I didn't go far down that road, but I definitely went through a phase where I was like, organized religion, that's why people fly planes into buildings and go on religious crusades and commit genocide. Organized religion is just bad. And the truth is, there's a balanced view that we can have where we can learn to separate the dogma from the sacred mythology, the sacred stories, and benefit from our upbringing, sort of not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So this is some of the stuff that I'll be talking about in the Garden of Eden video and in the book that I'm writing, which is essentially the Garden of Eden video, is like kind of like the first chapter of. So, sorry if you've heard me talk about that before, but you know, that's yeah, that's where I'm at. Oh, more PayPal. You guys must want me to play more bass or something. Actress Rain again says, could Euron kill Dany trying to become a Night King, but accidentally create a Night's Queen? Well, yes, absolutely something like that could happen. That would be an ironic death for him, seeing as Dany would kill him not long after. Also, I'm 100% in for any direction you want to take your channel. I've learned a lot from you as a writer. I take in everything that you're willing to share. Well, thanks a lot, man. That's awesome. Yeah, okay, so I definitely think that Dany has some Night's Queen potential. And similar to Jon's Night's King potential, there's two ways it could happen. One is that she could be ensorcelled for a time and then become freed of enchantment. And during that brief time, she'll serve as a Night's Queen figure. You know, Dany could end up being that Hands of White Fire Lady at Euron's side for a short time. Or the way that it could happen is at the very end of the story, Jon and or Dany have to become otherized in order to sort of pacify the others and become the leaders of the others so that they can lead them away, you know, back to their home or something like that. I definitely think that's a strong possibility too. So there's a couple ways that either Jon or Dany could become, you know, otherized, icy figures, a Night's King or a Night's Queen figure. Now, so Euron, as I talked about in my Euron Part 2 video, which not enough of you have watched. I'm sure all of you here on the stream have watched it, but I don't know. I'm just griping. That one has low views. I worked really hard on it. It didn't get a lot of views, but in any case, Night's King Crow's Eye video, I talked about all of Euron's Night's King symbolism, and I pointed out that there's a couple of ways that could go down. You could see Euron not ever actually become frozen and ice magical and looking like a Night's King. It could just be that he's blowing on his dragon horn and playing around with magic, and he accidentally causes the new long night to fall. And in that way, he echoes Night's King by triggering the invasion of the others, even if he doesn't actually lead it. However, I prefer the idea that Euron will actually lead the others and the Whites in some way. Either he'll be body snatched by, you know, the Night's King spirit, or maybe he'll tap into ice magic, just as Melisandre and Moqorro tap into fire magic, and he'll transform himself. So if there's anything magical going on, where Euron is transforming and becoming more of an actual Night's King, we also know that he's trying to do something with Dany, use her for magic, marry her, ensorcel her. We don't know, feed her warlock wine. He has plans with Dany. So you can see all this coming together. Euron could absolutely bring about some unpleasant magical transformation for Dany that has to be undone or that she then has to work with. And if you think about it, like, you know, Jon's dead and he's going to be resurrected by the time Dany meets him. And so we've pointed out a few different times it would kind of make sense if Dany gets resurrected somewhere along the way so that they're on equal footing. Otherwise, it'd be kind of weird, you know? Dany is this beautiful young woman who potentially could want to marry Jon and have a family, and Jon's like, well, bad news, I'm a zombie. You know? And there's the whole business of zombie boners. Do they exist? You know? So, I hate to just put it out there like that, but actually, no, I don't hate to. I talk about zombie boners as much as we can here. Oh yes, Yen said, Azor Ahai Nissa Nissa sounds similar to Marduk and Tiamat. Absolutely. I talked about this in the Bloodstone Compendium number 4, the Mountain versus the Viper and the Hammer of the Waters, and then again in the Grey King. Actually, more of it is in the Grey King versus the Sea Dragon, Weirwood Compendium 1. We talked about all the myths of the world serpent that gets slain. Leviathan, there's so many. Lotan, there's Tiamat, there's what's the Norse Jormungandr? It's a very common myth that the world ocean is perceived as a dragon. There's also some idea of patriarchy triumphing over matriarchy stuff that happens a lot there with those myths. But yes, there's George is borrowing from that stuff really heavily. If you remember, the Grey King slew the sea dragon, and the sea dragon drowned whole islands in its wrath. So I think that's partially having to do with meteor impacts, of course, but just on its face, that fits right in with the idea of slaying Tiamat or Jormungandr, and this is triggering some sort of transformation of the world kind of a thing. So Laocoon, yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch. There's a bunch. I did that research like 4 years ago. But yes. Oh wait, I know what's going to happen, and I'm sorry for saying this in advance. So if John is a zombie and he can't get it up, then he's going to need like a pinch hitter, right? He's going to need a surrogate. He's going to need someone to stand in for him, who can whose fat pink mast can still raise. I wonder who that could be. Sam, come here, Sam. Okay, I'm sorry. Again, I apologize. You guys have been sending me money. You didn't deserve that. I apologize. Oh no, yep. Yeah, that was... Yeah. Just popped in my head, sorry. Okay, so what else we got here? What else we got here on the old bookshelf? Here's a good one. A lot of you guys have probably read this. It was highly reviewed in New York Times a couple years ago when it came out. Song of the Vikings. It's about Snorri Sturluson, who is the bard who set down all the Viking myths and stuff, many of which were word-of-mouth myths. So it's a big question about how much Snorri actually invented versus just put down. But this talks about Snorri himself, the person, and the whole process of gathering the Norse myths together and how that worked. And very fascinating book. There's a reason why it won some awards. So Song of the Vikings, that's a good one. And here's another one. Why Evolution is True. As I mentioned earlier and many times before, I was brought up in a conservative Christian home. I went to Christian school, and I never learned about evolution science in school. I learned creation science, quote unquote. And so when I got out of high school, I literally had to read for myself to be like, what is all this, because at about 16 or so, I sort of renounced my Christianity and stepped away from it. But by the time I switched over to public school in my senior year, I already had all my core classes down, so I didn't take a science class. So I was left 19 or so, realizing I didn't believe in Christianity and that the whole Christian Science thing was highly suspect, but had literally never taken a regular public school science class. So I found this book, which was recommended as like a very condensed, here's the core of the latest evolutionary theory. It's literally called Why Evolution is True. I highly recommend this book. The Viking book title, I see someone asking, Song of the Vikings. I'll just put it up here. But yeah, if anyone ever asks or is looking for the condensed case for evolution, if you don't remember it very well from like high school or something 20 years ago, this is a really good book. It's by Jerry Coyne, Coyne, and it's really, really cool. Made a ton of sense. By the time I was finished with the book, I was just like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, evolution. Totally, yeah. Good stuff. Like, what are all these like Christian scientists all worked up about? Like there's... And the funny thing is, like, evolution doesn't even mean God doesn't exist anyways. Like, you have to have a very literal, dogmatic version of the Bible to read it as being in conflict with evolution. Like, it's... If you believe in God, then evolution would be just how God did things, right? I mean, it's really silly, but in any case. let's see, what else we got here? We all know about this book, of course. Fingerprints of the Gods, Graham Hancock. Fingerprints of the Gods 2 got released a couple years ago. And that's actually what I would recommend you to. I got that on audiobook. I don't know if I have the physical. Oh, no, I do, but just not out. I'm still unpacking. But anyway, Fingerprints of the Gods Part 2 has a lot of cool updated research on the comet, which seems to have struck North America around 10,000 BC and triggered the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas are a 1,200-year cold snap in the middle of a eon-long period of warming. So the last ice age started ending officially around 15,000 BC. And from 15,000 BC to 7,000 BC, basically the ice age ended. And sea level rose about 350, 400 feet over the course of that 6,000 years, 7,000 years. So essentially what happened is, and these dates are loose because, this is all geological research, but what we found is that, just what you think. When you have the Earth is frozen with ice caps all over the place and they start melting, well, it doesn't just melt steady. You occasionally get these bursts of flooding because what happens is on top of the glaciers, think of all of Canada and part of North America covered in glacial ice. And as it starts melting, you get these meltwater lakes that form both on top of the glacier or underneath the glacier, and eventually they break through and create these giant floods. And there's evidence of them, all over the world, these glacial floods. And so essentially, one of the first myths that we connected to science was the global flood myth. And what people started to figure out was that the flood myth was everywhere. It's all over the world. And so, was there a global flood? Well, probably not. But what there was is a period of time when the ice age was ending and sea levels were rising pretty rapidly. And since humans tend to live along the coast, any sort of, catastrophic flooding that's significant is going to wipe out civilizations. And the water's going to come from the ocean, it's going to cover the land where they live, and it's going to flood their world, if not the entire world. And so eventually we figured out, all these flood myths, we can tie them to actual floods. These glacial melt floods that happened during different, the Montana Badlands is a big evidence for glacial flooding. You can find all kinds of stuff in Tibet and India and stuff like that. But point is, they have found a comet in the middle of all this stuff. And so the Younger Dryas, I don't have the exact dates, but it's right around 11,000 BC, and it overlaps with Plato's date for Atlantis, which is 10,500 BC. Plato said that Atlantis, covered by the waves, 10,500 BC. Graham Hancock, of course, his overarching theory is that there was some kind of Atlantis civilization. Doesn't have to be Atlantis, but just that humans were a little more advanced than we thought. They weren't just hunter-gatherers 10,000 years ago, but that these global floods essentially would have been so destructive to human life that there's a gap there. There's a blind spot. There's the human populations got really small and then they sort of expanded again. And before that bottleneck, the same way that I talk about the long night as a historical and cultural bottleneck, that's what the Younger Dryas was. Essentially, Graham Hancock and some other people think, maybe there was some advanced civilization or civilizations that existed that got wiped out that, only left, small traces of. And the thing is that since the sea level has risen 350 feet since 10,000 BC approximately, 200, 300 feet, whatever, a lot of the evidence is going to be underwater. It's very hard to find. Doing underwater research is very expensive, and people don't do it much. It's surprising, actually, how little underwater research gets done. So, Fingerprints of the Gods 2 talks about the new evidence that's come out in the last 6 to 8 years that indeed what happened was a comet broke apart over the northern ice sheets and essentially vaporized large parts of the ice sheets, led to massive flooding, threw up debris in the atmosphere, just like a long night event, and that eventually led to a global cooling for about 1,200 years, basically a long night type of situation. The skies would have been clouded for the first few years, but after that it's just like greenhouse effect and stuff like that. So there literally was 1,200 years of a vicious cold snap, as cold as like the coldest part of the Ice Age, and then it released again, and we're back on the warming trend that we've had for the last 10,000 years. So, pretty cool, because it's essentially a much slower but very real long night event that was triggered by a comet, it would seem. So, very cool stuff there. I mean, if you're into anything on this channel, then definitely Fingerprints of the Gods 2 will be a good read. Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for everything you do. He says, I'm very proud to see how your channel has grown. Me too, man. Me too. We've come a long way from Bloodstone Compendium number 1, haven't we? Oh, where's the one I wanted to pull down? Look at Shock Doctrine. I've got a book about birds. If you want to read about birds, you can. Of course, everyone should read Guns, Germs, and Steel. I'm not breaking any news there. Jared Diamond, Pulitzer Prize winning book. It's kind of the scientific example for why racism is not valid. Talks about natural resources and how they have shaped history, essentially. Why did the Europeans get on boats and sail to the Americas and enslave them, as opposed to the other way around? Why did not South Americans build boats, sail to Europe, and conquer them? The answer is Gun, Germs, and Steel. So that's a good book. And what else I got here? Oh, here's the... this is that other book by Stephen Baxter, Evolution. This is like a trippy book. If you ever want to be in the headspace of a marsupial looking up at the comet that killed the dinosaurs, that's in this book. So that's pretty fun. Somebody was asking about the Jon Snow Night King video. That's going to be one of my next videos for sure. Definitely, yeah. I've got a pretty good idea of how that script is going to go. There might be 1 or 2 videos, but that'll be coming soon. I was thinking about doing another Dany video about Dany becoming a Valyrian sorcerer, or sorceress, if you will. I think that if you put the pieces together, you can see where it's going. Not only the glass candle and the dragon riding, blood magic, there's some other things too. And I think by the time Dany is done, she will essentially be the spitting image of a Valyrian sorceress. Not just a dragon lord, but like a sorcerer. Because the Valyrians, that's what they were. They weren't just dragon lords. They were sorcerers. They were powerful magicians. So I think that's where George is going to take Dany. Dany's going to be leveling up quite a bit. We have to remember to sort of forget about the TV show. You know, not only the will Dany become Dragon Hitler? You know, no, she won't, as I've discussed. But also the limits of where the magic is. Like Bran's magic, resurrected Jon was basically normal. You know, like Bran was just kind of like absent and robotic. And I mean, the magical conclusion of the storylines of Bran, Dany, and Jon are going to be much more magical in the book. So never forget that. Never forget that. Jon is going to be some sort of fiery cold hands or something like that. And Bran might download the entire Weirwood net into his brain. and like I said, Dany's going to be a Valyrian sorceress. She might get resurrected. She might become a Night's Queen for a time. So just, remember not to be limited by what's on the show. Oh, look, a bunch of super chats. All of a sudden. Thank you, Shauna. Appreciate that. Carol Funk. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Remember that one. Carol, you're going to have to... I'm missing a joke here or something. I'm missing the reference. Taco Guy 1988 says, do you think Dany could be revive from the dead and be an Ice Queen figure. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I totally think Dani, I would say it's more likely than not that she will be resurrected at some point before her story is over. It's very possible. So, hot, cold hands. Now, I want Jon to be hot hands, but if you think about his dream where he was defending the wall armored in ice, he's got a burning red sword and he's got black ice armor. So you could almost think that he might be like cold hands, but with fiery eyes. Like his body could be a frozen white body, but inside he could have R'hllor power. And that would make him sort of like an ice and fire white. And I think that is a thing that could happen. Ooh, Tracy, you sent, I think you're using the new Super Chat sticker function. Yeah, this might be something with the 30,000 subscribers that I have to check out and set up, but very cool. I have to figure out how to put those up on the screen. Yeah, how do I do that? Oh, there we go. Cool. Can you guys see that? Where it says Super Sticker, $4.99 from Tracy Mythical. Yeah. Very cool. Hey, King Monkey, what's up, buddy? They're seeing it. Cool. All right. I figured out how to do that. I could put King Monkey's emojis up there. And, oh, look, I can make a whole mess on the screen. Okay, cool. Oh, that, maybe I could think of fun games that we can play with this. So here what do you think, and yes, PayPal is better, particularly if you're sending in a larger donation. If you're just throwing in a couple bucks to say hi, Super Chat's fine, but definitely the paypal.me/mythical astronomy is the best way. And Grant has just sent one in. Thanks, Grant. Oh, I sent in a 30 for 30. There you go. Thanks for all the amazing content. Really looking forward to how you unpack all the new stuff you have on the horizon. Cheers. Cool. So, speaking of stuff on the horizon, I was thinking of a game that we could play with I'll call it the full house, the full houseization of A Song of Ice and Fire. So what I want to do is I want to go through all the chapters quickly as we can and try to pull out a moral theme, because I've seen some people fall into the trap of thinking that the Song of Ice and Fire is amoral, or that it's very cynical. You know, there's no good guys and all that stuff. Ned Stark was honest and he got killed because nice guys always get killed, and that's the lesson. That's not the lesson. So I am strongly of the opinion that George is putting all kinds of moral lessons in the story. And the way that he's doing that is essentially by just showing actions and consequences. You see a guy like Peter Baelish digging his own grave, right? And even Ned, like Ned made certain mistakes which led to his downfall. That's what George is really into, is showing people doing things that people do and showing the kinds of consequences that will catch up to you when you do those things. But that essentially functions as morality, because every time when an author tries to write a world, and this is why stories can never be non-political or apolitical or amoral, is when you write a story, what you're trying to do as an author is mimic reality. You're trying to create different characters that feel like real people with different viewpoints that say and do the kinds of things that real people do. Even though I only get to be David, when I write my book, I have to be all these other different people of different age and gender and orientation and background and all these things. So anytime you try to do that as an author, you are going to betray everything about your view of the world, what you think makes people tick, and what kinds of actions and consequences you have observed in the world. So when you look at the kinds of things that happen to George's characters, that's telling you how George looks at the world, what he thinks about the world. So what I would like to do, and I think this would be fun, is with no preparation, is to start, go to the Song of Ice and Fire wiki that has the little plot summaries for every chapter, and just go each chapter and be like, okay, what's the moral lesson in this first one? Like, for example, Catelyn and Ned are in the Godswood, right? And Catelyn is talking about the others and Mance Rayder, and Ned's kind of poo-pooing it like this, all right? Well, Ned poo-poos too many things. and that catches up to him, right? So pride comes before a fall. Ned should have listened to Kat. He should have listened to Kat about Robert, and he should have listened to Kat about the others, quite frankly. And you see the similar thing with Osha the Wildling trying to tell Robb and trying to tell the other Starks, hey, that the threat's up north. They don't listen. And that's their whole purpose as Starks, is to be prepared for winter. And so they fell down on their job, and they weren't vigilant. Okay, so this is the lack of vigilance and the sort of complacency led to the Starks being asleep at the wheel when the others came, right? So there's a moral principle right there. Anyways, I think it would be fun to go through all the chapters and see what we can pull out of every chapter. And you guys would be able to participate, obviously, and just throw out whatever the first one to come up with a good moral theme for each chapter. Then we just move on and see how far we can go. Anyways, we'll do that one time. Because I do see people say that A Song of Ice and Fire is amoral. And it's definitely not. It's distinctly not. So, all right, guys. Well, it is 1 hour and 56 minutes in. I always like to cut it off right before 2 hours. So, last call for questions and super chats. Got a few minutes here. Carol Funk. Jonathan Livingston's Seagull is a fable in novella form about a seagull who's trying to learn about life and flight, about a homily about self-perfection. I had to read it in school a long time ago. Oh, very cool. All right. So that is something to check out. I love fables that have like animals as the characters. Those are always fun. Taco Guy, does the North remember? Was that what they were supposed to remember with the others? Yeah, I would have to think. That is absolutely the whole, like, winter is coming is what they're supposed to remember. Why winter is coming and what that means. And you really get a sense of that when Mormont, is talking about when Sam is first unearthing knowledge about the others, and Mormont's like, well, we used to know, we should know, we were supposed to know, we were supposed to remember, we've forgotten our purpose, and we've forgotten the true enemy. So I think that's the author speaking right to us there. Got my seagull parrot in the other room squealing away. Hey, Stephen Cook with a PayPal. Thanks, buddy. Came via Quinn's channel. For the mythical astronomy and symbolism, stayed for your personality and the supportive, well-moderated community in this year of our Lord 2020. Yes, all the myth heads are pretty nice folks here, yes. We'll definitely follow you into other myths, both historical and fictional. Would be cool to host a charity stream one day for the Comet Research Group. Oh, that's right. There is a Comet Research Group. That's a good idea. That is the kind of cause that we should raise money for. That's groovy. And my dream is definitely to interview Graham Hancock on this channel one day. So if anybody knows Graham Hancock's publicist, shoot him my channel or something. I don't know. One day. All right. Well, we are just about coming up on 2 hours. So thanks everybody for coming. Thanks again for all the supportive words yesterday when I canceled the stream. Thanks for coming out and celebrating with me. Adam and Eve video will be out in a couple days. I'll definitely do a live stream just to follow up and talk about that. And I'll figure out how to get these air horns and other things we got. There's like there's applause. There's the bicycle horn. So I'll load some actual sound effects in for next week, and we'll have a little more fun with that. But thanks, everyone. Been a beautiful audience. See you next time.